Hello and welcome back to the Atmosphere Electric. I'm Rich. There's Fran. Fran, happy New Year to you and everybody out there. How was
Happy New
everything?
Year
Did
to
you have a
you.
good one, mate?
It was very nice, thank you. It was quite tiring with young kids, but that's the way I suppose it is, and I enjoyed it. I had a great time with them. How about you?
Yeah. The kids aren't quite so young anymore, but definitely had a nice, quiet, relaxing time, which was much needed. But obviously, it feels like a long time ago now. It's already a week into the new year, 2 weeks since Christmas. Feels like a lifetime ago already.
Have you got the snow your side?
No, we paid a big bucks down there, mate, to keep the snow off. So we've got the underground heating on. No snow yet, mate. What about you?
We're well during the night it absolutely tipped it down with snow, and then a little bit of rain came and washed a bit of it away. But yeah, we've got snow. Everyone just looking out the window, got snow everywhere.
Ah, no, none here, mate. None here, thank God. Although with young kids, like you got a little bit of snow's quite good fun for a little while, isn't it? For a little while,
Yeah, until they fall over it and hurt themselves.
I used to quite enjoy that as well. To be honest with you. But since we last spoke, though, mate, obviously busy Christmas period. Although it didn't feel quite as busy as normal football-wise. I thought they got the. I don't know about you. Let's start. I thought they got the Christmas scheduling horrifically wrong this year in terms of when the games were on. And I'm really not enjoying this bank of 6 games on at the same time. I think it's an absolute terrible idea.
Yeah, I was really excited by Boxing Day, mainly because you obviously had a lot of racing on. Racing takes center stage really with Boxing Day, but you've obviously got the football as well. But without having the Premier League on Boxing Day, felt very or a full set of fixtures felt very strange to me. It didn't seem like a normal Boxing Day. I thought it took away from the occasion because normally you have 4 television screens on with different things and you sort of immerse yourself in different games and different sports, and it didn't feel that way to me. So yeah, I thought they got it horrendously wrong as well, and it seemed to be blocks of Premier League, EFL, whereas actually I quite like it being split up and you can look elsewhere, and especially from a betting point of view, when you are trying to do an accumulator, it's quite hard to get all of the predictions for one league, as you can see that we try every single week. It's quite hard to get them all correct and get an acca in. So you have to sort of spread it out between different leagues, and I think a lot of people don't like spreading them out over the day. So I agree. I think they got it wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was a missed opportunity personally. And like I say, I feel like now back in the old when you didn't have all the like even this week Wednesday night there was whatever it was 5 games on. I ended up missing all of the bits of all of the good games, and you kind of like, well, I might as well just wait to watch match of the day anyway because obviously that's the only time where you catch up. It's just I don't know. I'm just not sure I'm enjoying the new way of working, and I thought they missed. There was lots of days with no football, I felt, whereas there was a couple of days with lots of football, and that's not normally you over that period. They tend to have one game a day, don't they? Where there's always at least one game in the evening. But they, like I say, I'm sure they know better than me.
Looking at though, because I think that was the feel I got from a lot of my mates who watch a lot of football. They were saying they didn't quite fancy it on Boxing Day. So yeah, I think it needs looking at. Worth a change. Revisit it and see what worked, and try and make a few tweaks again.
Well, of course, next year or this year as it is now, Boxing Day falls on a Saturday. So whether that will have a difference on what they do with it and whether there's a Sunday and obviously the Monday will be a bank holiday. So again, it'd be interesting to see how they play that out. But yeah, like I say, I just thought that for me, the Christmas scheduling of football was a little bit wonky. And of course, we're now at what it is 21 games played, and the league is really starting to take shape. Can you make a case for anybody bar Wolves, Burnley, and West Ham going down?
No, I think
Move
the
on.
game.
No.
Yeah, no, I think the Forest result for West Ham has sort of really sort of hit home that those three will be going down. That was a real opportunity, wasn't it, for West Ham to go out there and not get beat to ensure that the gap stayed the same, or get win. And I think it would have been 1 point, but no, I think that result has pretty much sealed the relegation spots, hasn't it? As good as Wolves have been the past few weeks, and after we've been saying they've been dreadful, like good to see a bit of a revival from them. But I think you can safely say that, barring a miraculous recovery from one of the teams, possibly Burnley or West Ham, I think Wolves are too far back. I can't see those three clubs coming back. I think it's done.
I think you're right. We have to, tip our hat to Wolves in terms of their turnaround. They've looked a much improved outfit. I think, last time we spoke, you was talking about them almost being guaranteed to break the record of lowest points in the Premier League. I don't think that's the case anymore. In fact, I think I've heard some people even talk about that they might not finish bottom, which, based on their current form, you might argue might be true. What I would say is that, this weekend, all three of them have got games that you wouldn't expect them to win. Having said that, so do Nottingham Forest. So you look at the bottom four playing Arsenal, Spurs, Liverpool, and Newcastle. Sorry, not this weekend because it's FA Cup. Sorry, next weekend or next midweek. You'd expect them all to lose those games. But yeah, for me, the bottom three are the bottom three, and like you say, that win was massive for Nottingham Forest. Leeds is upsurge in form, which has been really good to see as well. I've really enjoyed watching. And I thought Leeds were really unlucky midweek against Newcastle, and really probably should have held on and won that, but it showed a little bit of immaturity. I've been really impressed with them. I think they are going down, and for West Ham particularly, I think that could be a real body blow that takes them maybe even decades to come back from.
Well, I was just thinking that, looking at the three, of thinking who's best placed to come back up, and you generally say Burnley, wouldn't you? They normally go down and then piss the Championship, but I think they look a very different team to the team that came up. I think they'll probably have a few players leave again, so they're going to have a bit of a rebuilding job. One of my questions about Wolves, by the way, is where has Mane been? This young lad that they've found, he is an absolute talent. And if he couldn't get in ahead of some of the dross that they've been playing before that, there needs to be questions asked, because he's come in and he looks a superstar. I mean, unfortunately for them, they're going down, and but like we said, barring a miracle, I can't see him staying there. Somebody will pinch him in. He looks a tremendous player, so that might help them to rebuild the team. So whether Wolves might be in a better place. I mean, West Ham will probably do that with Jared Bowen. They might have a few but I mean, their wage bill, I see them similar to Leicester, of when Leicester went down. They're going to have to trim the wage bill, trim the players.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like you said, how long does it take you to recover from that? You normally have one dip at it, don't you? Where you come down and you're the big fish, which they will be in the Championship next season. But they're going to have to get rid of some players. Jared Bowen, you'd imagine, wouldn't stay there. There's going to be a couple of others that will be leaving. They have to trim that wage bill because there's players on there on 100 grand a week, probably 5, 6, 7 of them, like a lot of players.
Easy.
Big wages. So that's a huge job, and I don't know whether Nuno's the right man for it.
No, he won't be there. He won't be there.
At the end of the season.
Will he make it to the end of January? He won't be there. There's no way he's going to be there, mate. Like I say, I think, I don't know what's happened, and we're going to come on to it, obviously, but obviously, managers are never been more at risk of losing your job than you are right now. It's absolutely heightened. There's no way in the world that Nuno's still the manager at the end of the season. The risk for me for West Ham is not just all of those you quite rightly mentioned around squad size and salary. The stadium isn't intimidating. In the Championship, going there is not going to feel scary to teams. In fact, I think it will become a curse for West Ham in terms of the fact that people will go there, up their game. It's going to be half full. There's probably going to be, the noise coming from the way end. And I think that actually West Ham really, really need to do something now to give themselves. If they go down, I think it's very, very bleak.
I mean, what can they do though? And I mean, I've been seeing all this about saying the owners have sold them out and they've sold their soul, and they were sold the ground under different pretenses. Some of the plans that I've seen, where they're saying they were going to move the seats close to the pitch, and they've just gone straight into the stadium, and it is what it is. I think I've said before, I went to a game there. I went to Leicester West Ham, and we were miles away. Like, you look when the ball was down the other end, you literally couldn't see it. Like, it was such a poor spectacle, and the atmosphere was it was great atmosphere around you from the people, but the general game of the atmosphere was really poor. So I agree with you. It could be a curse for them, because a lot of those fans will not turn up in the Championship, like it or not. That is just a fact.
It started now. It started
now. But it's a fact. When teams go down, you lose the glory supporters from that as well, don't you? So they're not going to have that core support as well. So on paper, you'd say West Ham are the most likely to bounce back, but it's a huge task, and they've tried different styles of managers as well, haven't they? They've been through 3 or 4 different managers that have different styles, project managers, names, and none of them have worked. So I honestly, if you were to say to me, Nuno's going next week, whenever, who replaces them? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the managerial merry-go-round is more convoluted than it's ever been, and who goes where and who's looking for what. And if I was a manager now, would I be jumping at anything in the knowledge that there's even talk of Pep leaving in the summer? The rumour is that Maresca's been lined up for that, but I wouldn't guarantee that as being a shoe-in. There was a rumour going around, albeit a little bit exaggerated, that Luis Enrique's thinking that he might need another challenge from PSG. all of a sudden, well, you're definitely not going to appoint somebody if you're a big club, if he's available, and what's the knock-on effect of, where do you now? So if you're the club that's beneath Luis Enrique, who's the manager that's now available because he's available?
Mm.
And also it feels to me like there's a bit of a dredge of top quality managers available. It's also a World Cup year, so again, lots of Poch, Nagelsmann, and no doubt there'll be some random coach I don't know that does a great job with a random country that gets into the quarterfinal, then becomes the next hot topic. All of these things are thrown in the mix. Is that I think we're going to see more interim managers than we've ever seen before.
Well, I've just now, doing my prep work right now, and it's taken me 10 seconds, and I've wrote 6 clubs down, and I've not finished this work, by the way. I'm literally writing them down now, of managers where I don't think they're going to last and they're going to need to get a new one in. So I've gone Liverpool, Celtic, West Ham, Burnley, possibly Spurs, Palace. I could go down a few more like this, like you've mentioned, PSG. They're all going to have huge knock-on effects, aren't they? Because some managers they'll all be wanting the same one. They might be pinching managers from other teams. I don't know where some of these managers go. Like you said, there seems to be a real lack of quality managers out there. Sort of that new rank of manager. I'm thinking Xabi Alonso. He's been under pressure. They just don't seem to be that level of, like, we had a rung of world class managers, haven't we? And quite a few of them have dropped off now. And, your Mourinho's, Klopp's not out there. Like, I don't see where this new wave of world class managers are coming from.
Well, we'll come back to it, but there is of course rumours that Klopp's thinking about coming back into management, and of course Xabi Alonso, if Real Madrid don't win anything this year, he'll be gone. But we'll come, because obviously we're going to do a deeper dive on the managerial situation of those clubs. So that was us touching on the relegation pieces. Obviously, at the other end of the table, it feels like if we were having this conversation even 10 days ago, the answer would be different. But with the way that Man City's form has and the injuries that's impacted, and we can't, everyone has injuries, but they have suffered the last few weeks, is that those 3 draws on the bounce mean that Arsenal are now a shoe in to win the league. I know that they drew last night, and that gives us a little bit of hope and comfort with only being 6 points, but it's now firm in Arsenal. Man City beating Arsenal in the return leg doesn't have an impact on the outcome, so they're now waiting for Arsenal to make some slip-ups, whilst they don't slip up anymore themselves, and they look like they will slip up every week at the moment.
Yeah, and in Arsenal's favour, on the flip side of Man City's injuries, they seem to be getting people back, like Gabriel Jesus, so they've got a bit of rotation up front, which they need it with the way Gyökeres is playing. They don't seem to have a weakness at the minute, do they? Where they did have a couple of suspensions and injuries, they seem to have all come back. Like Gabriel coming back into that back line, I think just makes them look and feel so much more solid. Yeah, you could look at the Arsenal-Liverpool result last night in 2 different ways. It was a disappointing performance from Arsenal. However, they made sure they didn't get beat, didn't they? Yeah. Taking a point when other people have taken a point around you and you've extended your lead on the league, it's not a bad result. The way Liverpool are playing, you probably think it's an opportunity to take 3, but I think the main goal there was to make sure you don't get beat, which 6 points, it's a big gap, isn't it?
Whilst we talk about injuries in last night's game, I just want to highlight I was absolutely furious with Martinelli. I know that there's all kinds of shenanigans go on a football pitch and in the heat of the moment, heat of the battle, but I thought that was absolutely, when someone goes down like that, when there's no one around them, really, generally speaking, a player is done something pretty serious. If there's a coming together as someone's rolling around, it's a bit. And now I understand that Bradley did move himself back onto the pitch to make sure but to come along and push him, I thought that was an absolute disgrace. I don't agree with Gary Neville all the time, but I was surprised that Liverpool player didn't go and chin him, because I would have been absolutely furious if that was my teammate.
The main thing that got it for me was he threw the ball at him as well, didn't he? Like, threw the ball down at him first and then sort of pushed him. He has come out and obviously said he didn't realise the serious extent. Yeah. But when it was innocuous, wasn't it? Sort of he went to kick it, sort of miskicked it, and then sort of laid down. The only thing in Martinelli's defence was the minute on the clock. It was something like 90, wasn't it? So
94, yeah. But
2 and 2 together and got 5. But just there's no need for it in general to lob the ball at him and then do what you did. I just think was stupid. But I agree with you on that comment you just said. I was very surprised that no one from Liverpool came over. Remember the old Argentina-Holland game in the World Cup? Van Dijk. I'd have fully expected that to just go bang, move it, like loads of people come over, and they just allowed him to do it.
Well, Konate did, didn't he? Konate came over, and then
almost after the event, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I just thought that Gary, I've never heard a commentator on or co-coms talk about I'm surprised someone didn't go and chin someone in a game of football. So it resonated with me and stuck in my head. But I was in agreement. Like for me, if that was a teammate of mine, that is an absolute disgraceful thing. Like I say, you also have to look at the type of player. Generally speaking, fullbacks and defenders don't tend to go down. It's normally forwards, right? I know that's a real sweeping statement, but generally defenders are a little bit more robust because they're the ones doing the smacking. He went, tried to hoof the ball over his shoulder. Like I say, I just thought it was a really bad taste, and for me, it's left a really bad sort of feeling inside around that. That's a fellow professional that Conor Bradley's had loads of injuries. I just thought it was really bad.
Yeah, I mean, onto the game as well. I felt like I was going to get an injury with my eyes watching it.
See, I
It
didn't
was.
mind it.
Did you know? I mean, I actually thought Liverpool, considering
Yes.
where they've been,
Yes.
played quite well. Arsenal first half, I thought played relative. Second half, Arsenal shut up shop, didn't they? And I was really disappointed because the Arsenal Liverpool fixture in previous years,
Yeah. Yeah.
to me, has been a good fixture. And then when you
Yeah.
look at it on paper, I was pretty tired yesterday, but I was quite excited for the game. I was thinking, can't wait to watch this, and it just drifted. And in the end, I was like, this isn't what I really needed. 9:30 in the evening. I just thought to be fair, it did the job. It put me to sleep. So thanks for that. But yeah, I just thought, especially when you're Arsenal, a chance to go and take on a depleted Liverpool team, and I mean depleted in the sense of
Yeah. No
they're
forwards.
very good as opposed to injuries. Like, go and give them a beating and stamp your authority on the league. And I just thought it was a bit boring, like most Premier League games are now.
Yeah, but I thought I thought that what I enjoyed was actually for the first time in a while I could see Liverpool had a plan. Liverpool were using the press and the block well. I thought Szoboszlai kind of whenever Arsenal had a goal kick, the way he was on Marino, not Marino, the other Spanish midfield player.
Zubamendi.
There you go. I thought was quite clever, and I really like what Liverpool did based on the fact they didn't have a number 9 in Ekitike or Isak, and I saw some signs of actually Liverpool might be able to push on for that Champions League place that they're kind of fighting for. So actually, I could see as much as the game itself, I was kind of enjoying the tactical battle, putting the coach's cap on to see kind of how they were doing. Whilst we talk about the race for the Champions League, it's only fair and right that we talk about who has to be the manager of the season so far. He was a set piece coach. We mocked him. Everybody mocked him. What are you doing? You can't replace the mighty Thomas Frank with his set piece coach. Well, he's rewritten the rule book. Currently 2 points off of fourth. Unbeaten in God knows how many. Arguably the form centre forward that nobody else was signing because he had dodgy knees. What a job Keith Andrews is doing, and Brentford go from strength to strength, and it's absolutely refreshing to see, isn't it?
It is refreshing to see. I mean, they remind me of Bournemouth, of when they sort of go on a purple patch and win after win. So it wouldn't surprise me, this is not me knocking them, is in the next few weeks that they put a string of 4 losses together as an example, sort of the level of the team they are. But like you said at the beginning of the season, as a bit of an outside shout, they were one of my fancies to go down. I thought you can't have somebody with zero experience managing, let alone just in the Premier League, taking over from possibly your greatest ever manager and expect to stay in the league. And how wrong we were. He's done a fantastic job there. My only question is, and we said this before, is this the club and the stability and the processes they have in place where it's just functioning well and you could have put anyone in there, probably as proven by Thomas Frank going to Spurs and not doing what we thought he would? Or is he a genuinely good manager? I think probably the answer is a bit of both.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with how he speaks. And going to your point, if you look at their next fixtures, okay, but forgetting FA Cup, they go to Chelsea, they host Nottingham Forest, they then go to Aston Villa, they then go to Newcastle, they then have Arsenal, they then have Brighton. So the next 6 or 7 games will give us a true test of where they actually are. But your point there, I think, is one that's really important, is that it wasn't just us. Let's not pretend that we were the only ones that were wrong. The whole world was saying that Brentford are a risk of going down. They lost Mbuemo Norgard, the goalkeeper, Ben Mee. I remember going through the list on here. They lost a bunch of players as well as Thomas Frank and his whole backroom staff. They were absolutely, if you'd have said to me then that West Ham would be in the bottom 3 and Brentford would be pushing for Champions League, I'd have laughed in your face and called you an absolute donkey.
Yeah, of course you would. It wasn't like we'd put into AI, give me an outside shot. It was quite an obvious pick, really,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, yeah.
The season, the amount of players, like included the captain, the main striker, Tony. I know it was a little bit before, but they hadn't really recruited. Really, it's not like they've had an influx of players. They've had a couple here and then. Obviously, you mentioned Igor Thiago's been superb, but even when he was signed, nobody went signing. That everyone just thought, everyone was just like, oh, they've made a signing. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an outside shout to think that they go down. So I don't think anyone's got egg on the face, but fair play to him. He's really shown everyone. Again, I just don't know whether it's this club. How good are Brentford, Bournemouth in general? I know they've been on the slide, but these teams just have processes. Brighton, I just think you can almost put anyone into that position and they'll flourish. But
Well,
they've done
I
a superb
guess
job.
I guess if they carry on at this route and they finish there, the test we'll come on to it, but the managerial merry-go-round, he may well be on it. But another team that we have to, just before we move on to the merry-go-round of managers, is, for me at least, just touch on the great form and run that Fulham are on and what they're doing, because, again, we've given them some stick over time, and I still look at the squad and think it looks light, and I don't think there's a huge, but the job that they've done and the run that they're on, and they're currently in ninth, but again, they are only 4 points off of fourth. I think Fulham need to be recognised, in my opinion, as one of those teams that are not only one of the form teams, but are overachieving on where we thought they would be at the start of the season. And Marco Silva's contract out at the end of the season, could be one of those, looking at one of those higher ranking jobs.
Well, you just said that, right? Fulham down. Can't see him being there next year, so they'll be on the lookout. I really can't. They said if you've got somebody who's out of contract, you need to pay no compensation for them. He 100% can move up the ladder.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Fulham, and Raul Jimenez again shows the importance of having a number 9, an old-fashioned number 9. It gives defenders a hard time, doesn't it? Get chips in for goals. I've been really impressed with and of course Harry Wilson's in a contract year. Harry Wilson's contract's up at the end of the season, so it's an NFL phrase, but it tends to be the case that when you're playing for your next contract, you have a good season, and my God, he's having a good season.
He's playing very well. Something that I'd like to highlight, you've just said with the number 9s, is I think being a goal scoring number 9 has sort of died, hasn't it? Because you are now seeing number 9s come into play who aren't as much as a goal scorer. It used to be that you put somebody up there who was, quick, as an example. I think you're starting to see less and less players who are more of a goal threat than players who can bring the rest of the team into the game. And you mentioned Raul Jimenez. He scores his fair share of goals, but he's not prolific. And I think when you look around the Premier League, how many goal scorers, 9s now, are prolific? I mean, Isak he's obviously injured. Ekatike, I don't think Ekatike is prolific. He's a very good player, but I can't think of many now who are prolific. You seem to need to be able to hold the ball up and bring others into play, which is the main skill set. And I think over the past 10 years, that's been one of the biggest flips of skill sets.
Well, but let's recognise the piece of recruitment that Leeds United did with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You talk about number 9s that are scoring goals and holding the ball up and just being a general nuisance. At the moment, if you was picking an England team to play next week, Harry Kane would be your number 1, number 9, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin has to be your number 2, number 9, right? Has to be.
Yeah, or Watkins. I know he's coming to a bit more.
Yeah.
But the point in general about he's definitely, I think he's on the plane at the minute.
At the minute, he's
yeah,
1,000%.
If you were to pick 3 9s, he's at the very worst number 3.
Yeah, 100%. Like again, the handful, big lump. Gives you options. Throw the ball at him. I can't remember the game that they scored a couple of goals from long throws at Ellen Road. Wasn't Liverpool just before Christmas. They're a proper handful.
I think it was, weren't it?
I think you might be right. I think you're right. Yeah, they are a proper handful. And he gave Newcastle a tough time midweek. I've been really, really impressed. By the way, I've also been impressed with Leeds' turnaround since they changed the shape of system. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin's played a big part of that, and nobody else took a punt on him, and I'm really pleased for him and for Leeds.
Yeah, I think what it does show as well. So I'm now sort of jotting around a few topics here, but Liam Delap.
Yep.
He should have taken the Calvert-Lewin advice. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, it matters the team you play for, but he's chosen stature over himself. He would have been better served of going to Newcastle and being the number 1 striker. Because when Newcastle were in for him, they hadn't signed Visser. They weren't in for Voltemada.
Yeah,
he'd have been the number 9, and he'd have been far better off going down the ladder a little bit, maybe moving up from Ipswich. But now he's gone to Chelsea. He's getting very irregular minutes. He might get one start here and there, but he's not the main number 9, and I think it's going to harm him. Whereas you look at Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's not as young as Delap is, but he's playing every single week. Like he's probably going to go to the World Cup. I don't know if Delap's ever going to get to go to the World Cup. He might develop great in the next 2 years, but I think he's done his career real harm, and I think that's a lesson for a lot of. You don't even think you need to say young. Play. Go to a team where you play.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I agree. But I'd also say that when he's playing, he needs to stay on the bloody pitch. Like he's a walking red card. Even the other week, another stupid.
He's such a hothead, isn't he?
The amount of yellow cards he picks up, and unfortunately, managers at the top level can't risk. It was the Newcastle away game, wasn't it? We got sent off. I'm sure it was like, I'm getting old, but anyway, I'm sure it was Newcastle away. He got sent off, and it ruined the game. And you can't then trust your young centre forward. You're not going to play him. You're going to put João Pedro up there, whether he's better or not, because you can't afford to play games with 10 men. It's just you see what happened to Chelsea midweek against Fulham. The minute Cucurella got sent off at 0-0, you would have lumped on Fulham to win the game just because they got that numerical advantage. And he needs to grow into that and have a little bit of common sense, because, like you say, he went to Chelsea. The belief was he went to Chelsea because Maresca, because of their link at Man City. Maresca's now gone. The next, Liam Rosenior is good with young players, so he might be able to rescue him. But Chelsea are on a bad run. New manager coming in. Do you trust Delap, or they've got? By the way, they've got the number 9 from Strasbourg coming in the summer, who's going to be their main man because he looks like he's a very good player. Chelsea is always going to be a revolving door of players.
You go there pretty much for the payday, don't you? And that's why I think players go there looking after their finances as opposed to their career. And if we're being honest, at the end of last season, he'd just had a great season with Ipswich. Everyone was talking about him being the heir to Kane. I think he's made an awful decision. I think Newcastle would have been a great fit for him at the time. I don't think they would have gone after Voltemada and possibly Visser if they'd gone.
No, they definitely wouldn't. No, they definitely wouldn't. Voltemada was a direct consequence of Delap not choosing them.
Very strange. Yeah, if you're a player, pick the best club for you to play and develop at. Don't worry about the cash. The cash will come.
Well, let's now move on. So we kind of touched on Chelsea. There obviously there's been a couple of very interesting and a couple of still to come interesting managerial decisions. Chronologically, Chelsea and Maresca parting company. That felt like that escalated really, really quickly, didn't it? It seemed like I know results haven't been amazing, but not horrific. And all of a sudden, over that Christmas period, there were some rumours coming out around kind of falling out behind the scenes, and Maresca basically threw his towel in and kind of walked away a little bit, which is unusual for a coach to do. Firstly, how surprised were you when Maresca did that? Because that is a cushy job and he could have got a nice payout if he'd stuck around.
I'm not surprised at all, if I'm being honest, because in his short tenure as a manager, he seems to have moved on very quickly, and there hasn't seemed to have been that level of loyalty there. He's done it at quite a few clubs, so he has been very much looking after himself. And the rumour of him, going to Man City, that doesn't surprise me at all. I always hear, Simon Jordan always bangs on about it. Why is there no loyalty? And I agree to him in that extent. From this case, is you're the Chelsea manager. He's on a 4-year contract, whatever he was. They plucked him from the Championship and gave him an opportunity to manage Chelsea. Yes, he won some trophies, but why can't he stay there and develop? It's not like Chelsea are a small club. Like, it just seemed bonkers to me. And now he's lost his job. And when I look at it, he's always going to get a job. But where is he going to go? Because I don't think he'd last at Man City. Yes, he's a mini Pep in the way, he's learned everything from Pep, but it's a lot slower. His brand of football is a lot slower and a lot more patient. Everywhere he's been, even, let's say, Leicester, the fans moaned, even though they stormed the league, the fans moaned about the football, said it was boring. The Chelsea fans have said the exact same thing. And there's going to be clubs that won't take him because of his brand of football.
Yeah, but that's the evolution of football we're on right now. Like you mentioned it twice now about how boring football can be. And Chelsea, for me, are not a good watch. I've not enjoyed any of Chelsea's games whilst he's been there, and I'm very interested to see as we move on to Rosenior being the new coach. Obviously, that felt like an obvious choice based on the Strasbourg link, but is obviously a massive risk in terms of his actual experience and his what he's actually done. But he's come across, hasn't he, very well so far in how he addresses the media and how he talks. So the players will be very easy to get on board because he'll be able to give them a very good kind of motivational speech. But the wider world are going to take a little bit longer. Do you see Liam Rosenior going in and actually being a hit from the start, or do you think it's going to be a slow burn?
I think it's a very difficult one because generally he has set up as a defensive coach, and Maresca is an attacking coach in the sense of he has attacking players on the pitch, but yes, they retain the ball. It's going to be a little bit of a transition, in my opinion. But every time I've seen Liam Rosenior, I've been impressed with, like you said, the way he speaks. I think he understands the game very well, and I think he's a very good coach. The question for him is he a big enough personality and manager for Chelsea? And that's going to be a challenge. I think if he was to come in as a coach, I think everyone would love him. I think he'd be a superb fit. But I mean, you've also got to remember that these players at Chelsea aren't of what they used to be. Your Drogba's, your Lampards, your Terrys, who are stars. They are younger players who can possibly be moulded and will be more on board with that. So I don't think if he wasn't at Strasbourg, he wouldn't have got the opportunity.
No,
But now he's in the system and they've seen him. I think he's going to be okay. I think he'll do a decent job. But there's no way he'd have got that job if he wasn't at Strasbourg.
completely agree. But that's, right time, right place. It's all about opportunities. It's about taking it. This could be the springboard for him to be. We've always bemoaned the fact that the big clubs don't give young English talent a chance of being the manager. And now we have to kind of hope that he pulls it through and does a great job, because that could open up doors for many, many more young English coaches to grab those big jobs.
Gary O'Neill's gone Strasbourg, and
Yeah.
you'd like to be thinking that he'd be looking at the Rosenior appointment and thinking, if I do a good job here, there's potential that I might be the next Chelsea manager.
Yeah, you'd like to think that Chelsea might have a bit of a plan, but yes, like I said, I think it's going
to shown that the route of what can happen if you make a good impression.
100%. And Chelsea have been on a bad run of form. No wins in the last 5. They've gone from being in the top 4 to just outside the top 4. They're 4 points off of Liverpool. What looks like success for Rosenior between now and the end of the season?
I think he needs to make Europe, and when I say Europe, I mean a European competition. So I'm not specifically thinking Champions League.
Okay, I thought you were trying to define what Europe is. I'm that stupid. I don't know what Europe. When I say Europe, I mean that continent that we live in.
Yeah, people normally say Europe though, and they mean the Champions League. But I don't think it'd be a nightmare for him, because he's obviously still learning. He's a relatively young, inexperienced manager. His first real gig in the Premier League with a huge club. I think, looking from the outside in, expectations to qualify for the Champions League is going to be a lot. It's tough because that squad still remarkably still needs signings, still needs ins and outs. So it's going to be difficult. So yeah, I think I don't think they'd be happy with the conference. I think Europa League is possibly where I'd be looking for them to qualify and try and win that and get into the Champions League. So because when you add Villa into the equation now, then they're going to be pinning everything on a Champions League qualification. So I think it's going to be tough for him. So yeah, I think he's got to make at least the Europa League.
Yeah, for me, one of the things that has to be top of his list is getting Cole Palmer back to being Cole Palmer. I feel like that's one of the biggest drop-offs of the season, is that, he's become almost, when you talk about the Premier League, feels like this time last year and maybe even the year before, like you couldn't have a conversation about talking about how amazing Cole Palmer was and the goals he was scoring. At the moment, I don't even know if he starts or doesn't start. Like, he's become completely irrelevant to me. For me, that's, if he can get Cole Palmer back to being Cole Palmer, he's going to be on the way to having a good end of the year, isn't he?
Well, he's not been on the pitch, has he? He's been injured. With the most random injuries as well. He needs to get back on the pitch because, looking forward, he's in danger of missing out on the World Cup if he doesn't get on the pitch, isn't he? And like you said, a year ago, there was debates about whether he should have been starting, let alone getting into the squad. So he's got to get back on the pitch. But he's the driving force behind that Chelsea team. So Rosenior's got to get him in. He's got to make him the main man because, in all honesty, he's their best player. It's not a shock to say that. Get him on the pitch, make him the main man, get him performing again. Because if you do that, you get better results. And I think you generally would get the buy-in from the team, which I think is going to be his problem. He's got to sell himself first.
Yeah, like I say, he absolutely has to find a way of becoming relevant. Because at the moment, you would say, when we talk about England, I would arguably say that he is behind Morgan Rogers.
At this minute in time, he definitely is.
Yeah. But you then talk about Saka being in the mix. You then talk about Anthony Gordon.
I think, with the exception of Kane, Saka's the number one nailed-on starter for England.
So, but actually, where does he fit within the England setup? Like, say, Morgan Rogers is doing some bits and pieces in a couple of different positions. This season he's played 11 games, 2 as sub, scored 3 goals. he's just nowhere near the numbers that he was producing. He doesn't look as dangerous. He looks, in many ways, actually a little bit of a passenger. Now, Chelsea fans will tell you and me that part of that is because, the way that they do things, it's all done on stats and medical bias. So therefore, he's been coming off after 60 minutes, quite often frustrated by that process. But I still stand by it. He hasn't done enough in the 11 appearances this season for me to take him as being a Premier League, necessity this season.
I'd agree. And so when I look around some of the other Premier League teams, and I'll try and sort of pick a few players out here, Phil Foden has been playing well. He seems to have dropped off a touch, but I think he gets in ahead of at the minute. Yeah, I mean, you've got Jack Grealish, he's been playing okay. I don't think he'd get in ahead of him there, but at the same time, Grealish is still another one you can pick. There's oodles of players there that you can look at and think, at the minute, Cole Palmer's probably on par with Jack Grealish. So, Grealish has played more games, probably got a similar amount of goals. Generally, you'd take Cole Palmer, no doubt, no question about it. But from the way that people are performing, you've got Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon on the other flank. Is he on par with them?
Isn't Harvey Barnes Scottish now?
I don't think he's yet. Is he accepted?
No. I know that he flirted with the idea, didn't he? But if England picked him, I'm sure he'd play for England.
But you get the idea though, with some of the players around. So I'm not saying that those players are better than him, but when you look at the level of performance this season, it's touch and go whether he makes it, which is mad saying that a year ago. It does just also highlight the strength and depth of the England squad. I think the manager's going to make such a difference.
Yeah, maybe I do, but for the wrong reasons as well. I just, like I say, I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see England doing anything. I think that, defensively,
I don't think it'll be pretty, but I think we're going to surprise a few people.
Listen, man, I don't give a crap if it comes off of the referee's backside and he doesn't notice and we win in the 99th minute of the final has been stunk the place out. I want to experience England winning the World Cup whilst I'm young enough to remember it. I mean, I'd do almost anything for England to win a World Cup. I just don't think it's happening anytime soon. We talk about Chelsea. They've found their replacement. The team that haven't, and I've got to be honest with you, the whole piece of Manchester United is a shambles. Okay, if we go back to why they picked Amorim because they wanted to play with three at the back. The noise and the rumours coming out was that they decided eventually that whether it's Jason Wilcox or whoever it was, decided that actually three at the back isn't the way to go. Well, then you've picked the wrong manager because he is the most stubborn manager to three at the back in the whole of Europe. And it just feels to me like they're flopping in the wind. They've got no idea of this strategy or what they want to do. Why would you possibly ask a manager that's been that rigid in his shape to change it halfway through the season? And therefore, Fran, I'll ask you, was Amorim right to start throwing his toys out the pram because he felt like they were meddling in his team selection?
I was very surprised by his comments when they came out because to me, I'm not as close to United as their fans will be, but to me, it came out of the blue. I was like, whoa, bloody hell. And then once you heard it, you thought, he's on borrowed time. You can't talk about your regime like that. Managers who come out with statements like that normally are asking for it. So I wasn't surprised to see the next day that he'd gone. However, like you said, he was been brought in to be the manager and he's being meddled with above. I thought fair play for him to calling it out because some managers would have just towed the line, been a yes man, would have just gone along, took your payment. So I thought fair play to him for doing it. But it's unbelievable. They're the gift that keep giving, United. You can't keep sacking managers, changing styles. Wherever they bring in now, say they play four at the back. That's another reshuffle, whole transfer piece they need to do. And they're not the same financial power that they once were, where they could have gone 10 out, 10 in. Can't do that anymore. They're on par with a lot of other clubs. They can do 2 or 3 per window now. So they'd almost gone 50%, hadn't they, with Amorim? 2 or 3 windows to go. We're revamping the squad to get it to where we need to be. It needs to come back the other way now, depending on who. Unless they sign Antonio Conte, who's going to carry on with a 3 at the back. Where else do they go?
Okay.
Do you think they've got the players at the minute to play a Glasner 3 at the back? Because I see those, even though it's technically the same-ish formation, I see them as being very different.
But is that because the Crystal Palace players have a better understanding of it and therefore Glasner's done a better job of coaching it? Again, at what point do we So I think at any level of football, right, I can go and get 11 players that are better than your 11 players and stick them on the pitch and we'll win a bunch of games. What I think Glasner does is he makes the players understand the shape to a point that actually you and I could play it. It doesn't have to be. So, you think even now that they've got a shortage of centre backs and they've stuck is it Lerner as a centre midfield player at centre back, and he's gone in there and they haven't really had a massive drop off. Like, I just think that if you're married to, now, by the way, maybe they're no longer married to the idea of three at the back. Maybe they want to go forward at the back and they've changed their football philosophy. But maybe Alex Ferguson has come back with you need to play a 4-4-2 for all I know. But if you're looking to keep a three at the back, for me, there's no one better, and I would include Conte in this. Although he's doing great, but I wouldn't want Conte at my football club long term. But Oliver Glasner, I think you could have a 5-10 year plan with him, and he'd deliver you results with three at the back.
Yeah, I think you probably nailed what I was going to say there as well. Is those players that they've got. So I'm looking at the main people I'm looking at here are the fullbacks. Their fullbacks are just better, aren't they? The wing backs. When I'm looking at Dallo and say, I know Luke Shaw's been playing centre half a lot, but from an attacking sense, what's the lad at Palace who's the right back? I forgot his name.
Munoz.
He's superb going forward. He's almost a winger to an extent.
Yeah,
He's very
defensive. Definitely.
Whereas you look at Dallo, is just a right back. He is defensive fullback. So is Luke Shaw. I mean, he used to bomb forward, but now he is defensive fullback. Dorgu, I don't know what he is. So yes, they've been building that squad, but those players, they're just set up differently. The fullbacks for a Glasner team go and they basically become wingers and make the shape, don't they? The Man United ones sit back and defend.
But I think that's also part of the problem here, Fran, is that if you've asked me to play a style of football, you have to go and deliver me players that can do that. What you've just highlighted there is that a keep up now, and I mean this sincerely, I coach at under 18 football, right? If you come and play against my team in a 3-5-2, I'm as happy as a pig in shit. Because there's very few people in the world that can play that wing back role and be in the right place. What you end up doing is doggies up the pitch because you're never in the right place. Oh, we've got the ball, right, we're going forward. Oh, we've lost the ball, I'm back. And they're never in the right. So I love playing 3-5-2. It's the worst shape you can possibly, or 3-4-2-1. It's easy to counter. You need specialists. You need, like you say, you've hit Mitchell and Munoz are, in my opinion, the two best players in the league that do that. So if you're going to do it, you've got to give them the tools to do it. So you've come in early, don't wait till the summer like you asked to, play a system that we haven't got the right players for, and then we're going to judge you against that without giving you the right players, even though you've now had nearly 3 wins, but certainly 2 winders. You bought him a bunch of, if we're being honest, a bunch of crap that's not quite, Xerxes not really what he wanted, Dorgu's not really what he wanted, and yet you're holding him accountable. And to be fair to the fella, they are 3 points off a top 4.
Yeah, I don't actually think he's done that bad of a job. Like you said, he's been given a load of shite. The only two that you can say might have actually wanted to equality is Mbeumo and Cunha. I don't think he's fancied any of the other players that he's been given. And say Dorgu's the one for me. Who looked at him and thought he's a good player? He's awful. I think it was last year. I'm sure it's last year. Last year, Palace signed Ben Chilwell on loan. That's the most obvious signing that United should have made and got. I know he's injury prone, but we need a left back who's got a bit about him going forward, who can help the left winger. They can tuck in and we can bomb round him. It's the most obvious signing they could have made, and he was allowed to go to Palace. He ended up being a backup, didn't he?
Backup
like
dancer,
you said,
yeah.
Mitchell is a very, very good wing back. So they got Chilwell in his backup. Who signed Dorgu and thought he played right wing the other day, by the way. I watched that game against Leeds. He's awful. He's absolutely awful. So there's no confidence to me if the next man who comes, and we've said this for a while, the next man who comes in there, that ship is already sinking. The setup stinks. Even though they've had new owners come in and they've revamped it with some new staff, it stinks because when you are signing Dorgus and players of that mould and they've been recommended by the club and you're getting it so wrong, what hope have you got?
I think it's also really relevant for us to talk about, the lack of quality on a bench. Man United, in not all my entire lifetime, but certainly in the kind of living memory, have always had just strength. We've spoken about it many times. They just used to go and buy the best player from whoever team they were in the Premier League at the time and stick him in their squad and maybe a bench filler. Like, they're having to rely on this academy kind of concept until obviously the Burnley game really started to turn around a little bit. the squad has just not got the right strength in depth. You talk about players that aren't good enough. I go down the list. You look at Xerxes, hasn't anywhere near the level. Malasia, nowhere near the level. Lenny Yoro was coming in, sort of heralded as being one of the all-time greats, and he's a little bit muff for me. Like he's got a long way to go. You'd argue that Heaven is a better prospect than Yoro, who they got for peanuts. Like you say, Casemiro and Agate, what problem are they solving really? It's just a really misshapen, unbalanced squad that I think, if I was a manager, I'd be saying, hold on a minute, guys, we should be firing the sporting director here because you're not providing me with the right sort of players.
And I mean, that's going to sort of lead, I don't know how long we've got left, but that's going to lead me on to one of my next points is, I don't think, when I just looked at the league and I've written down a few clubs who I think are being run poorly, and I've dipped into the Championship as well, because there's numerous clubs where I look at it and I go, how are those owners getting away with running that club the way they are? So I've got Man United, Chelsea, I think is being ran horrendously. It's being ran, they're buying the amount of money that comes through Chelsea, and they're very lucky that they've been able to fiddle PSR because they should have been breaking PSR with what they've done. West Ham, Burnley, Wolves, say into the Championship, Leicester, Southampton, Sheffield Wednesday, like the amount of owners that have come into clubs. When is something going to be done about it with the ownership? I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, I've just reeled off 8, and I reckon if you dig deeper into some of the others, I don't know whether the Fulham owners, like as an example, I don't know, but
the Spurs fans are throwing stones at the screen right now for you not to mention Spurs and their ownership.
Well, yeah. So I mean, that's without digging a little bit deeper and stuff. They're just ones that nationally is quite obvious. You can pick them off the page and go them. So if you dig a little bit deeper, I reckon there's more. I mean, is it? Answer me this. You've never owned a club. I know that, but it can't be hard. It can't be hard. Hire people in positions who have a good track record, who know what they're doing. How hard can that be?
I think so. It's an interesting point because ownership for me is there's two parts to this. There's those owners that just shouldn't, because they don't have the financial capability, means, or desire to run a football club. That's one thing. When you look at the Sheffield Wednesday experience recently, there are of course many other experiences of that in sort of time gone by. But what we're talking about here are people that perceptionally have enough money to run a football club, but just aren't running the football club well according to the fans.
Yeah.
And of course, according to the results on the pitch. Now, so there's two different problems. What we're talking about here is actually not those ones that are driving a club into administration and nearly into non-existence. We're talking about that are just running a club almost blindfolded and just kind of letting that happen and see what happens and making some really bad decisions along the way. And I think if I'm honest with you,
surely it comes down to the ownership, though. So, as an example, you look at Wolves. Previously, Wolves, they had a method of working, they had a super agent, and they've gone and got all these players in, and then they went, we're going to shift away from that. Why? What a great strategy that you had. It didn't cost you a lot as well, because generally the players that you bought cheaper, and they sold them on more expensive. I'm trying to look at some other teams now. West Ham have spunked millions of pounds on shite. Absolute rubbish. Now, if you're an owner, why would you not be bringing in the sporting director, the technical director, whatever their titles are, and saying to them, this is the model I want you to run. If you want an example, look at Brighton, look at Bournemouth, look at Brentford. You can go stat-led. It's not hard to be stat-led. Like, signing players cheap, send them on. If you're not Manchester United, Chelsea, even them spunking money up the wall, and they're now in a position where, Man United can't fill out a bench. I just think the ownership has to take on that responsibility and set the criteria of how the technical directors can run a football club, but with parameters of saying, stop spending 50 million on Mbeumo. Go and find the next one, or somebody who's coming up. I just think it's madness.
But I think so. So if we just stick a fork in the West Ham part of that, because I think that's really interesting, is that we have to be careful on both sides of that coin, because you remember, I think his name was, I think I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, but Mario Husilos, who was coming on a big kind of expectation. And remember, they won the transfer window, right? We have to remember that it wasn't that long ago. They won the transfer window, full crew. All these guys came in. He's done an amazing job. Very quickly, that kind of introduction. If you speak to a West Ham fan about Max Kilman, they'll literally kind of start punching your face. When actually at the time it seemed like a pretty good deal because he was a left-footed English centre-back. He looked like he was doing places. So they brought somebody in to do that role that was revered in the industry, And at the time, we all thought he did a great job. They've now given it to Mark Noble, which feels like, job for the old boys. Like for me, the difference when you talk about those clubs that are well run, Brentford don't move from the strategy. It doesn't matter who's the manager, who's the sporting director, the strategy is the strategy. Brighton are the same. It doesn't matter who those two people are, the strategy is the strategy. For me, it's when you go flapping in the wind and you go, right, we want a pragmatist, we want David Moyes. Oh, we don't want David Moyes, we play horrible football, we want Graham Potter. Oh, but now you haven't got Graham Potter players. So Graham Potter can't do what he wants to do because, we need a pragmatist. Let's get Lopetegui in. Oh, we don't want to, and so it's that flip flop of styles. Same with Manchester United. We go from Alex Ferguson to David Moyes. We go to Louis van Gaal to Mourinho. Like they're all different. Like the difference is you've got to have a vision that you stick to, and then you've got a chance.
I agree entirely, but I think it firstly sits with the owner. The owner needs to know what it is that they're doing. You employ people around you who then understand the vision, and then you go from there. And when I look at those clubs, I don't think any of them have got good people around them. I think they all stink. Like you wouldn't be going to any of those clubs if you are Man City, Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool, and going, I want people from your club. Not many of them will move on.
No. The other thing that this is, and I've spoken to you about this probably about 4 billion times. So I know, sorry, you're hearing this again, but I don't know why any professional club really bothers with an academy because there's clearly no one coming through. Like, you look at West Ham, right? West Ham were, when I was growing up, was the Academy of Football was what they were branded. That was their, kind of unofficial nickname, if you like. They've just signed 2 centre forwards that, and I'm not being disrespectful, but Tati Castellanos sounds like a Spanish potato dish to me. Like, I genuinely think, like, I've never.
Absolute dog shit the other night.
But there must be somebody coming through London in the last 5 years that was, that's now between the age of 17 and 21 that West Ham could go, we're going to hang our hat on this as our new number 9 and we're going to give him a chance because the West Ham fans would absolutely love to get behind one of their own in that number 9 position. Like, why can't they produce? The issue for me, why can't you produce players? Because that's within your gift. You've got those boys with you, kind of full time, 50 weeks of the year. Teach them how you want to play, and then give them a fucking chance.
I think that's the whole crux of the whole West Ham issue, isn't it? Is they've gone out. So even that transfer window, yes, we said they'd done good business, but I mean, a lot of them, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, they didn't come on massive transfer fees. Not many of them anyway. They got quite a lot of players for relatively decent prices. It's the stuff before and after that, really, when you look at it. So those two I think they signed a pair of new strikers.
Yeah, Pablo and Castellanos.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see much of Pablo, so I haven't seen him. But the other one, Castellanos, he looked awful. Absolutely awful. I know it's his first game and he might prove people wrong, but 20 odd million for him. And I thought he's the epitome of why the West Ham fans are going mad. Like you said, there must be somebody in their academy or around other academies in London who's doing a better job than him.
But the other part of this, so just while you got me there, is that so Pablo they signed from Gil Vicente. Do you know how much Gil Vicente signed that player for? Just like 8 months ago,
250k.
So my point is, that if you fancy him, sign him at 250k because then everybody goes, do you know what? We'll give him a chance. He's cost 250k. Like it's magic. Like the trouble is that we're buying here. Like there's no infrastructure that brings the like. I keep saying I watch a lot of Premier League 2 football, mate. I promise you, they're not setting them up for first team football. It's a complete waste of time. I'm sorry for those of you that got kids that play it or watch it. It is not going to produce Premier League football players because it's not real football. The academy system's failing. But what are we doing about that? Because for me, West Ham should be every adult that's got a kid that plays football in and around London should want their kid to go to West Ham because it's still known as the Academy of Football. And Rio Ferdinand, Joe Cole, all these players that come through there, and they're all good footballers as well, by the way. Not just, and what I mean by that is they're good on the ball. They've got a good culture about them. It's just frustrating to see a club that could have been so great be so bang average, and they're gonna disappear.
So I'm looking down the league now, and I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. And I'm going to miss some people because I'm not, as in depth with all these clubs. But the only 2 that I can look at the minute where their academies are producing players who are getting in the squads regularly are Arsenal and Man City.
But Man City, because they're buying them, like again, this. So,
I get that, but that's still a strategy, isn't it? Go and sign. I mean, when you're at the top, you can do that. But if you're then, I'm going to pick someone here. If you're Forest, as an example, I'm trying to think, or if you're Villa, you are the leading Midlands ish club
Yeah, yeah.
in the Premier League in England. Why are you not mopping up all the talent in that area? And there must be some worldies out there in that area, and just ping them into your squad, get them in, get them through the squad. I can't remember some of the Villa players that have come through. Same with Forest now, probably in the East Midlands. They're now the best team. When was the last time someone came through from their academy?
Yeah, look, I mean, just to go back to your point, Max Elaine, who obviously came on or started at the midweek, the Revering is an academy product. They paid 1.5 million as a 15-year-old to, not to him, but to the guy, I think, from Southampton. So, we have to be a little bit careful what we call an academy. But your point is they're investing in the youth. I know that Man City also paid 400 grand for a Stevenage player a couple of years ago that, people have got some big expectations about. So for me, this is how these clubs turn themselves from being middle of the road to being absolutely exceptional, because you don't need to have too many of them come through. You either get, you look at like you rightly say, Saka, you think about Nweri, you think about Dowman, you think about Miles Skelly. Yeah, there's 4 players that are in and around the first team that have cost them nothing.
Nweri.
That's what I said. Yeah, sorry,
So you're saying, yeah, there's loads. But I'm going to go for my local example. Them last 5-10 years have probably sold the most academy players and got money for them. Chilwell, Dewsbury Hall, there's been loads that have come through the academy where they've sold those players. They went away from that model and have been relegated. Now trying to get back, they're bringing through all these academy players. It just makes no sense that you had a model that worked. You've gone away from it. It's just bonkers. I don't even think it's hard to say the model that I've just said there that Leicester did have is developing academy players, play them in your first team, develop them, sell them on, recycle it and go again. There's only a few teams, your Brightons. I mean, they didn't even go down this academy model. It's more signing players from abroad, but very similar model. It's not hard to do.
Yeah, look, it clearly is hard to do, but for me, this is how these clubs can secure their future, give themselves that platform. Because again, they've all got an under 21 or Premier League 2 team. They've all got under 18s. They've all got 17, 16, 15, 14. It's costing them millions a year to develop these players to not play in their first team. What is the point? What is the genuine point of it? You look at West Ham, and you mentioned him earlier, Jarrod Bowen, right? I think if I was a really serious club in January, I would be going absolutely all in to get Jarrod Bowen out of West Ham right now, right? I'd be going, it's 55, 60, whatever you need, because in the summer, if they go down, he's not going to be worth half that. But he came through.
Where would you pin him now? Where would you pin him? What team should go after him? Because I've got a couple in mind who I think should go all out for him.
Well, I can't think of many that I wouldn't suggest. Liverpool would be one that needs him. I'll tell you the only 2 teams that don't, I'd say Arsenal and Man City. The rest of you, Liverpool, Aston Villa, based on the amount of games you've got, he's way better than Marlon and the other guy you signed from France. Liverpool are absolutely gagging for him. Newcastle United, Langer's not the man. Manchester United could do with him. Chelsea could do with him. And if you're saying that Spurs are not going to go down the league, Everton, but I don't think they can afford it. Sunderland, Spurs, get him.
Would you go to Bournemouth?
Would I? I would at my age. I'd love to play for Bournemouth, but I don't think he would.
You might get in with the way they're playing at the minute, but
No.
you're Jarrod Bowen, and the Bournemouth have just received £65 million.
Yeah.
Would you go?
I probably wouldn't leave. Bearing in mind, the problem he's got, let's not forget, is that he's obviously dating a West Ham United fan's daughter, right? So there's a little bit of connection beyond the club. But so he probably won't leave for Bournemouth. But those other clubs will be able to give him an increase in his salary. He's got one last transfer. He doesn't want to be playing in the championship. Go and give it a go. Go see if you can get him out there.
Yeah. I think so. I agree with you on all the clubs you mentioned. I think most of them he would get into. Well, Semenya, who's just gone to Man City, came through lower league football.
Exactly right. It's a much better pathway for these boys than the academy system with the Premier League, which I find really frustrating because, again, you look at the money they're spending. It's just fascinating for me that a team like West Ham can't attract the very, very best quality in the whole. You think about all them boys in London, South London. There must be so much talent down there that should be able to make a real impact on that West Ham team. That means that they don't need to spend 35 million on 33-year-old Nicholas Fulkrug who's injured. You've got a young, hungry local lad coming through your youth team that's banging in. Think about Jermaine Defoe coming through the West Ham Academy. Or I know that there was a Bournemouth group, but I'm saying those sort of players should be coming through to break into the first team, which mean they don't cost you anything other than the build up, and then you sell them for big money once they've got you into the place.
Yeah, agreed. Or your other alternative, you do what sort of Palace and Brighton have done. Mainly Palace have mopped up players from London, haven't they? Where they've bought talent like your Guehi's, Elise's, Eze's, where they're young enough age, they've bought them cheap, developed them, and sell them on for huge fees. So it doesn't necessarily have to be through your academy. You buy them at sort of 18, 19, 20, where you can see they've got potential, and buy them for modest fees.
Yeah, again, going back to your point around, championship players don't seem to get a looking for some reason. And again, by the way, you spoke about number 9s a minute ago. If we can just swing back to I can't pronounce his name, but the Swansea centre forward. If I was a Premier League team looking for a number 9, I would be knocking on that door because he scored a fair amount of goals, and I think he's worth a punt. He looks like a bit of a player to me. And I'd be giving it a go if I was, and again, there's rumour that Strand Larsen's coming out of Wolves and going to maybe a Spurs or wherever it is. I'd be thinking about maybe pulling the Swansea's number 9 out because he looks quite lively to me.
There's a few decent players in the Championship. The thing is, I don't think it's been as strong this season as it has previously. But there's players even in the League One, League Two that the Championship you should be looking in that market, bringing in. We mentioned earlier, but off pod goal scorers. Look in the National League for goal scorers. If you score goals, you can score goals at any league. You can adapt, especially if you're young. You can develop.
Yeah, Vipotnik is the guy I'm thinking of. I think I've watched him play a couple of times. I think he looks not only a good player, but like I say, a good goal scorer as well. I like him. I think he's a bit of a talent. I'd be looking at him. But yeah, like I say, there's our rant of why teams don't do youth progression very well. And obviously within that, we spoke about obviously the managerial merry-go-round and of course where the league position is. Obviously FA Cup weekend this weekend. So as much as I'm going to enjoy some of those games, it's not something we do any predictions on. So fun as always, mate. Really, really enjoyed that. Good to catch up with you again. Obviously people can reach out and shout abuse or give us compliments. Where can they find us?
So social media wise, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And to listen to the episodes, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. If you could just do us a favour on social media, especially, is drop us a follow and retweet or share any of the content. We'd really appreciate it.
Awesome, mate. As always, my favourite hour of the week. Good work, bud, and we'll speak next week.